Hi everyone, I'm Claire Wasserman, author and founder of Ladies Get Paid, a global community that teaches women how to level up. Today I'm going to teach you how to get the job, and not just any job, a job that fills you with purpose and maximizes your strengths in an environment where you can thrive. In this first part of the class, you're going to learn how to identify and undo any obstacles that may be standing in your way of forging a career path that's truly right for you. Part of the work we'll do is really finding out what makes us come alive, what our innate strengths are, and ways to think outside the box when it comes to our interests and curiosities. In order to refine the direction and know what opportunities are best, we'll focus on our motivating values and determine what our true priorities are. At the end of this first part, you will lay out the next steps to take because at Ladies Get Paid, we're all about action. The second part of this course is focused on how to tell your story. That means learning to structure your resume, write a kick-ass cover letter, and really tailor your LinkedIn profile so that you can attract recruiters and hiring managers. You're awesome, so you need to make sure that they know that too. In the third part of this course, we'll talk about how to open up as many opportunities as possible so you can get in the door at your dream company. Yes, that means networking. I know networking can feel really uncomfortable and awful sometimes, but I promise I am not only going to make this painless for you. By the end of this class, you are going to be excited to do it. We'll address networking in 4 ways. Through social media with a specific focus on LinkedIn, how to do cold outreach, making the most out of virtual and in-person events, and how to leverage your current network to connect with new people. That includes how you can help others so that networking is reciprocal and, like I said, something to get excited about. The last part of this course is all about rocking the interview. We'll go over commonly asked questions, how to let go of your nerves, and how to tell if this is a good company that's a good fit for you. Yes, you are interviewing them too. This course is designed for anyone at any stage in their career, whether you're a recent grad or someone who wants to level up within your industry. This course will provide you with the tangible tools and practical advice to make you stand out as the best possible candidate for your dream job. So let's get started and let's get you hired. In some way or another, a lot of us have felt some pressure growing up, whether it's from our families or our schools or communities, pressure to take the right job or pursue the right career path rather than what's actually right for us. The sad thing is we start going down a path we think we should be on, but it actually ends up making us feel unfulfilled, burnt out, or just unhappy. The truth is that you and only you have the power to define your own career trajectory. But how do you do that? In this part of How to Get the Job, I will help you identify your personal values and goals, which will sort of act like a compass that guides you in the direction of your dream career. I'll teach you how to quiet that nagging inner voice that tells you not to take risks, and together we'll explore your strengths, dig into your interests, determine your priorities, and identify some next steps that you can take. Overcoming other people's expectations is really hard. The first step is confronting the assumptions you carry about what work is and what it isn't, what you should do or what you shouldn't. Those assumptions have been influencing your decisions, for better or worse, for a very long time. By the way, as we do more of this work together and your mindset begins to shift, the unknown will be scary, but it will become more exhilarating, I promise. Something to be aware of is what's called the tyranny of the should. The tyranny of the should says that we have 2 views of ourselves: the real self, who we are, versus the ideal self, the model of who we feel we should be. When we sense that our real self isn't living up to the ideal self, we assume that we're fundamentally flawed. A good example is, I should go to law school. It's stable, even though you hate it. Or, I shouldn't pursue acting. It isn't stable, but you love it. Unless we challenge the assumption that there is some ideal self we should inhabit, we'll continue the cycle of self-doubt, self-flagellation, and unhappiness. Basically, we'll just keep feeling like crap. Now, I want you to reflect back on your past and how you might still be carrying around those shoulds. What career paths did you have exposure to growing up? Did adults in your life ever share their expectations for your career? What would you say has been the major driver of your career choices? Has anyone ever commented on those choices? And if so, what did they say? Have there been times in your life where your gut told you something, but you didn't listen to it? What do you think was stopping you? Now that you've identified some expectations that you're ready to let go of, let's dig into what deeply resonates with you and what makes you come alive. After all, life is too short to have a career or a job that you're not wild about. Looking into your past can offer you some clues that will help orient you towards a path that is right for you. The best place to start looking for these clues is to identify times in your life when you were in flow, meaning you were completely energized and absorbed by what you were doing. You were so into it, it was like time just melted away. Now let's dig deeper into those memories. What were you doing? What strengths and skills were you using? Where were you? Were you alone? In front of a computer doing something with your hands? Environment is such a big part of how we thrive, so pay special attention to that part. Now I want you to switch gears and think about times in your life when your energy was depleted. What were you doing? Where were you? So much of knowing what you want comes from experiencing what you don't want. What you're doing with these exercises is collecting a bunch of data that you'll then piece together to find a company, role, and environment that sets you up for success and happiness. A lot of the time, we think that work has to mean hard work. We think that anything that feels good or comes easily to us somehow means that it's not work. And because of that, we spend so much of our energy trying to fix what's wrong with us, rather than cultivating and leaning into what comes naturally to us. I want you to think bigger than your skills you use at work or skills that might be associated with a traditional job. This is about finding the strengths that are innate to your core being. Consider qualities that you might not necessarily think would be related to the workplace. Maybe you're great at organizing parties. Maybe you're the person that your friends always confide in to help solve their problems. This isn't to say that you should necessarily become a party planner or a therapist, but it does give you more data to work with as you figure out your path forward. However, I know it can sometimes be hard to identify our strengths. We're honestly too close to ourselves. So here are some prompts that might help you. What are things I do really well? What do I say, think, or see differently from other people? What comes naturally to me? Now I want you to reach out to a friend and ask them, if you were to describe me to someone else, what would you say? These answers are your strengths. When you start looking for jobs, I want you to seek roles that not only require these strengths, but prioritize them. You've probably heard the phrase, follow your passion, a million times. I hate that expression, and here's why. When you try to follow your passion, usually one of two things happens. One, you either have so many things you're passionate about that you don't know which one to pursue, or two, you have no clue what you're passionate about in the first place. Plus, maybe you're passionate about something, but not so passionate about the paycheck it's going to get you, or not get you. Quick story for you. I have a friend who wanted to become a professional violinist, but a few years into it, she found that trying to make money from something that she loved actually took the joy out of it. But you know what? She didn't learn that until she tried. Instead of passion, I want you to orient yourself towards something that makes you curious. What topics or activities do you find that you're continually drawn to? What are some of the things that move or motivate you? What are the problems that you want to solve? If those questions stump you, try asking a close friend, what is something that I never shut up about? Okay, now that you've identified what gives you energy and what doesn't, you know your strengths, you've dug into your interests, I'm curious, what patterns come up for you? Those patterns are clues that you will use to point you in the direction of new careers and opportunities to explore. Our goal is to find you a job that sort of sits at the intersection of all the data you just gathered. Knowing your values and standing up for them is so crucial. Not only do they act as a guide along your path, they will help you find companies that have the ethos and environment where you know you'll thrive. First, let's define values. Values are things that you believe are important into the way that you work and live. Just like you reflected on the times in your life where you felt most alive, I want you to think back to the times where you felt most fulfilled and proud. On the flip side, what about times that were really painful or frustrating? Now ask yourself, what was it about these experiences that made you feel this way? Now I want you to go through a list of common values, things like creativity, community, balance, stability, and figure out what resonates most with you. Check out threadsculture.com/core-values-examples for, examples of values. Take that list of values you've selected and see if you can group them into categories. For example, you may have selected growth, learning, and personal development. These values are all related and could be placed in one category. Narrow down all this into around 5 to 10 values and maybe 3 categories overall. Now I want you to see if you can identify a central theme. What do all of these things have in common? And how can you see them being expressed and manifested in your career? Here is the ultimate question I have for you, and it's okay if you don't quite know the answer yet. How do you define success? What feels like success to you? And how can that get manifested in what you do and where you work? I want this to be clear that this is not something that's static. Your definition of success will change as you change, and that's a good thing. So along with learning to listen to and to trust your inner voice, make sure you're continually checking in with yourself. Are you feeling satisfied, fulfilled? Are you growing? What things do you maybe need to adjust? And what things do you need to learn? Remember, it's just one step at a time, and if it feels good, you're good. It's important to remember that while the ultimate goal is to craft a career path that is the intersection of your strengths, your interests, and values, no one job or one company can have it all. I think a lot of career happiness comes from the misguided belief that you can have it all. In my humble opinion, it's better to focus on your priorities and then look for opportunities that reflect them. But how do you determine your priorities? Try answering some of the following questions. What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to fight for? Try filling in the blank of these 3 statements. I would like to have, I'd rather not, I need to have. Categorizing your priorities this way is a gut check. Force yourself to be totally and completely honest as you consider where these things fall on your priority list. Remember, this is not about anyone else's expectations. This is about what you want and what you need. Everything you've uncovered in doing this work might make you want to quit your job ASAP. You're like, I gotta get out of here. Only one life to live. Yes, that's true, but wait, let's map out those patterns you identified in the data you collected and then write down tangible, actionable micro steps you can take to explore different possible directions to go in. That thing you're interested in, read a book about it, learn a new skill related to it, watch a webinar on the subject. Too often we feel paralyzed when we've put in the work, but we don't yet know the answer. Taking action means you're making progress while still figuring things out. Here's where I want to remind you that making change is never easy. I know you will find it tempting to stick with what's comfortable. Don't do it. From the beginning, set yourself up to be accountable. Put things in a calendar, designate a buddy to check in with you, or give yourself a reward when you accomplish something that you set out to do. All of this will help you get into the habit of feeling good and giving yourself permission to continue. If you take one step and it feels good, take another. If it doesn't, try something different. The most important thing that you can do is to keep moving forward. By doing that, you're showing yourself that you can and deserve to take control of your career. Just be aware that the voice of the shoulds, remember the tyranny of the shoulds, may threaten to get loud again. Here's why. That voice thinks it's protecting you from the prospect of failure that comes with doing something new. or veering off the traditional roadmap. Remind yourself that you're not throwing caution to the wind. You are being deliberate and focused. Part of learning to quiet the inner critic means getting more in tune with your instinct and then allowing yourself to actually trust it. This is about having faith in yourself. And it's a lot harder to do that if you always have this little voice inside you telling you to be afraid or to stay small. If you find yourself feeling stuck or wondering what's next, consider how and where you can grow. Whether your next step will give you more skills, exposure to a new industry, access to a larger network, or maybe just a financial cushion to get you through leaner times down the road. Consider the industry as well and what direction it's going, and if you see a place for yourself in it. One way to figure that out is to look at the career trajectories of people above you. When your work is aligned with your goals and your values, everything feels lighter, just the way it does when you're in an environment that doesn't require some sort of contortionism. This isn't to say that it won't be challenging, because what's challenging is so often what's rewarding. But it shouldn't feel so difficult that you're having trouble getting yourself to do it. If you're going to put the work in, don't you want to be at a job that you look forward to each day? You deserve to do work that you're proud of, and you'll be more successful in reaching your career goals if you go in a direction that you've chosen with purpose. One last thing. I want you to know that when I talk about finding a job that brings you fulfillment, I am not saying that you should deprioritize your financial security. We all need to pay our bills. But don't give up on the possibility that you can both love what you do and make money from it. In fact, the more you love your job, the better you'll do, which hopefully means making more money, at least down the road. For more information on how to make more money, be sure to check out my salary negotiation course. When you submit your resume for a potential job, do you know how long it takes for the hiring manager to decide if you're a strong candidate? 6 seconds. That's right, 6 seconds. Now, does that mean you need to do something crazy to get their attention? No. What they want to see is, yes, that your experience and skills reflect the job description, but most importantly, how you've impacted the business bottom line of where you currently or used to work. What this means is tailoring each resume and cover letter to the job you're applying for and really quantifying what you can bring to the table. Let's get into it. First, I want to quickly go over the general format of a resume, and then we'll dive more into the individual parts. Contact info, summary of who you are and your qualifications, work experience, education and certifications, anything extra that you think would be an asset to the job you're applying for. In other words, what will make you stand out. For example, if you have technical skills, this would also be a place to list that. Before we get into the meat of your work experience, let's talk about how to best structure it. Remember, you only have 6 seconds to show the recruiter that you're right for the job, so this part is crucial. I'd suggest using one of following options. Option number 1. You can put your work experience in chronological order with your most recent job listed first, or option number 2, you can organize it based on your skills and strengths. This is also known as a functional resume. In this kind of resume, group your skills by theme as they relate to the job description. For example, you could maybe have 4 categories: analytical skills, communication, and marketing. Or maybe customer service, administrative support, and detail-oriented. Another way to group things together could be by the projects you've worked on rather than the skills you have. I'd recommend that most people use the chronological format because it shows your career trajectory and how you've moved up and really grown in your career. However, if you're someone who is new to the workforce or maybe changed industries or took some time off or just don't really fit the mold, I'd probably suggest using the functional resume, since this will put the focus on how your skills are transferable and that your uniqueness is an asset. Ultimately, what your resume should do is tell a story of your career journey. Whether you followed a more traditional path or bounced around, as long as you've expanded and developed your skills and increased your responsibilities, you're in good shape. Now that you know how to format your work experience, let's actually dig into that experience. For each role or category of skill or project, I suggest breaking it down into just a few bullet points of the most important responsibilities or tasks, and then, and this is crucial, what the quantifiable impact has been on how the company makes money, which could also be time saved since, well, time is money. Quantify as much as you can. For example, the number of people you've managed or mentored, the clients you've worked with, or the customers you've served. Now, I understand that this is easier to calculate for some roles than it is for others. For example, if you work in sales or finance, there are the pretty obvious metrics like sales volume, market share, and profitability. However, if you're in a role that feels more nebulous, that's okay. You just need to get a little more creative about how what you've done relates to the bottom line. And note, the word creative is not a euphemism for bullshit. Honestly, real talk. If you're not sure how you make money for the company, that is a problem. Whether you're applying for a new job or not, it's super important that you know your place in the business's bottom line. So if you're not sure, figure out who you can talk to, because again, this information will help you be strategic about the work you do, and it will help you demonstrate your value to the organization. By the way, if you don't know the exact numbers, give a range, like edited 5 to 7 articles a week, or something more general, like managed a budget exceeding $500,000. The language you use throughout your resume is super important, especially since many companies use an ATS, or applicant tracking system. An ATS is basically a job scanner that finds keywords and short phrases that relate to particular requirements, whether they're skills, abilities, credentials, or qualities that the hiring manager is looking for in a candidate. So, how do you know which words to use? Easy. Use the job description. I also suggest looking through the company's website, since there's a lot of good information there, especially when it comes to their values. This is why it's important that you tailor each resume for each job that you apply for. You want to be as specific as you can, using action verbs wherever you can. Education. List the colleges you attended, the degrees you attained, and any special awards and honors you earned. That includes professional development courses and certificates. By the way, no need to include your GPA unless you graduated less than 5 years ago and it was more than 3.5 and up, or if the company you're applying to requires it. Let's just say that I didn't include my GPA. Skills. This should be a short section. Only include things that are related to the job you're applying to. You only have so much space on your resume, so I would focus more on your work experience and impact. I might also include any volunteer work or special projects that you've done that really reflect your interests and values as they relate to the job or the company culture you're applying for. Especially if you're new to the workforce, you might want to consider making this section a little longer. The 2 other things I want to mention: no need to include a photograph unless they ask. Save your resume as a PDF with your name and the job you're applying to. This will make it easy on the hiring manager. Remember, you only have 6 seconds. How to write a cover letter. I'm going to be kind of mean for a second. The 2 biggest mistakes I see with cover letters are they are too generic, aka not tailored to the job and company you're applying for, or they are a regurgitation of your resume. Both of these things are lazy and won't make you stand out. Yes, that means you need to write individual cover letters for each job, just like you need to have individual resumes. I know that means spending more time and energy, but a cover letter is such a valuable opportunity to let your personality really shine through, and it's a space where you can go into more detail about your skills and experiences. Oh, I forgot to mention, all of this has to fit into no more than 1 page, and preferably half a page. But don't stress, I got you. Every cover letter should have 4 parts: a salutation, an opening, the body, and a closing. If you're applying for email, make the subject line short, specific, and to the point, like experienced software engineer seeks senior level mobile position. And if you have a mutual connection or you were referred to the job, include that person's name as well. Now, let's dig into those 4 parts. The salutation. If you know the name of the hiring manager, definitely use it. If you don't know their name, dear hiring manager is fine. The opening. There's not one right way to kick off a cover letter. I'd suggest starting with your enthusiasm, plus some specifics on how you'd be a great fit. For example, something like, I'm so excited to apply for the community manager position between my passion for bringing people together and my 5+ years of experience coordinating multiple events with a number of partners. I'm confident I'm a great fit for the role. The body. This is where you really sell yourself. Just like you did with your resume, I want you to work backwards from the job description of what skills they require and the keywords that they used. Here are 3 buckets. Bucket A. What are you offering the employer? This is where you can highlight examples of the work performed and the results you achieved. However, it's not just about the work you did. It's also about how you did it. Show them the thought process or approach behind one of your responsibilities. Show them how you think and how you problem solve. Talk about your resourcefulness, especially if you're new to the industry. Highlight ways that demonstrate how you're a fast learner. Feel free to include a testimonial if you have it. For example, maybe feedback from a client, a customer, or even your boss, as long as you have their permission. Bucket B. Include examples about your personality, passion, or work ethic that makes you especially good at getting the job done and done well. Bucket C. Show research you did about the company and how you as a person can contribute to their mission. Just as much as they're looking for someone who can do the job, they're also looking for someone who shares their values and will be a positive addition to the team dynamic. The closing. This is your last chance to emphasize your enthusiasm for the company and how you'd be a great fit for the position. Summarize what you would bring to the position and suggest next steps by requesting a meeting or suggesting a phone call. Something like, I'm passionate about company's mission and would love to bring my awesome skills here to this position. Something I see that trips a lot of people up, and that's a huge turnoff for the hiring manager, is when the candidate talks about what the company can do for them. Remember, you're applying to the job, not the other way around. LinkedIn refresh. I'm surprised how many people ask me if they should have a LinkedIn profile. Yes, you should. There are more than 740 million members on LinkedIn, and so not only should you have a profile, you need to have a profile. Also, when people Google you, you want to be in control of what they find. You want to own your narrative, and having a LinkedIn profile is the #1 way to do that. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 6 parts of what makes a great LinkedIn profile. But first, let's talk about getting you a customized URL. The goal of LinkedIn is to find people quickly and easily, and to be found quickly and easily. The best way to do that is to have your name in the URL. So, on the Edit Profile screen, go to the bottom of the gray window that shows your basic information, and you will see a public profile URL. Click Edit next to the URL and specify what you'd like your address to be. When you're finished, click Set Custom URL. Also, don't forget to add the URL to your signature section at the bottom of every email you send. This is your home on the internet. Invite people over. Okay, now on to our 6 parts. Part 1, your background or banner photo. LinkedIn's default background is great and it's totally fine to use. But if you want to snazz things up, here are 3 ways to make it clear who you are and how you want to position yourself professionally. For example, you in action. So if you're a speaker, maybe you would have a photo of you on stage. Or something that reflects your industry. For example, if you're a filmmaker, maybe it's stock footage of camera equipment or a photo that you took from a recent shoot. You could also draw attention to a cause that you believe in. Part 2, your headshot. Your headshot needs to look professional, though it doesn't have to be professionally taken. Basically, anything that's not blurry, not you partying on a yacht, not you in a group. That's right, you should be the only one in the photo. Also, make sure that it's recent. Just like online dating, when they meet you in real life, you don't want them to be like, who is this person? You also don't want to be too far away. So I would say having your face take up around 60% of the photo is probably your best bet. Lastly, smile. A study of 800 LinkedIn profile pictures found that people view you as more likable, competent, and influential if you smile in your photo. The survey found that smiles that showed teeth were rated twice as likable as closed-mouth smiles. Oh, bonus points. If you can show yourself in action doing something related to your industry, so for me, it's a picture of me speaking on stage at the Ladies Get Paid conference, definitely do that. Part 3, headline. By default, LinkedIn creates your headline based on your current job title and company. You don't have to keep that. I'd actually make it more of a mission statement of what you do. You can also have a little fun with it. Something like, I help people find their dream jobs through recruitment and career coaching. Oh, I also love cats, a lot. By the way, you only have 220 characters, so choose your words wisely. Something to keep in mind throughout your whole profile is what are the key words you can integrate from job descriptions that resonate with you. The goal of LinkedIn is to connect, and this way you'll be on the radar of the right people in your industry, which is always a smart thing, even if you're not currently looking for work. Part 4, the summary. Your summary is the text box at the top of your LinkedIn profile, just below your photo. This is where you get 2,000 characters, or 3 to 5 short paragraphs, preferably with bullet points in the middle, where you give an overview of your professional life and really put your best self out there. But before you write anything, first think about who you're appealing to. What would they want to know about you, and how can you get them excited? Here are 5 parts to a great LinkedIn summary. A great opening line. By default, LinkedIn shows only the first 3 lines of your profile summary before readers have to click to see more. So this works out to around 290 to 310 characters. What you do, why you do it, successes you've had, and what you're looking for. One thing I want to mention with LinkedIn summaries, make sure you're optimizing it to be found by recruiters and hiring managers. You can do this by checking out keywords in job descriptions that interest you, as well as going to the dashboard underneath your summary. There, you'll see something labeled Search Appearances, which shows you what words people were looking for when they found your profile. If you don't see words that reflect what you do or what you're looking for, then that indicates you might want to add those words to your summary and profile. Part 5, your work experience. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make when it comes to their LinkedIn profile and their resume is that they use it to talk about their job responsibilities, and that's about it. Job responsibilities are a place to begin, not end. What hiring managers really want to know is what were your results. Be as specific as you can and quantify it as much as possible, drawing the connection between your work and how your work impacted the business bottom line. Personally, I wouldn't go back farther than 10 to 15 years of relevant roles in your career. And if you're unemployed, you can put a job title that you're targeting and be upfront that you're seeking new opportunities. Let's talk about language for a second. I want you to watch out for buzzwords and cliche phrases. Things like, I think outside the box. This is going to make you look super generic and kind of douchey. Other overused buzzwords include things like specialized, leadership, focused, strategic, experienced, passionate, expert, creative, innovative, and certified. Use present tense. Don't refer to yourself in the third person. It's just weird and kind of pretentious. Part 6, skills, certifications, and hobbies. This is pretty self-explanatory, though don't forget it. It'll help you stand out and showcase a little more of your personality. While it's tempting to leave your LinkedIn static, don't. When you have updates at work, update your profile. Have a win at work? Add it. LinkedIn is a great networking tool, and so staying current is crucial. Speaking of networking, keep watching for my next video on how to leverage LinkedIn to find the people and opportunities you want. When you hear the word networking, how does it make you feel? If the answer is awkward, nauseous, or the phrase necessary evil comes to mind, you are not alone, and it doesn't have to be that way. And in fact, if it does feel that way, you're doing it wrong. So instead of the word networking, I'd like us to say community building or connecting. Doesn't that make you feel so much better? In this course, I'm going to walk you through the best ways to network using social media, specifically LinkedIn, as well as how to get the most out of attending in-person and or virtual events. I'll also talk about how to expand your network through the people you already know. If you're like, but Claire, I don't know anyone, unless you're a total hermit who has never left their mother's basement, though nothing against mom's basement, trust me, you know someone. And that someone knows someone else. And that someone knows someone who knows someone. You get the point. Using social media. When it comes to social media and how you can use it to network, there's no one size fits all. Different platforms have different purposes, and so choose carefully which ones you want to invest in. For example, what you put on Instagram might not be something that you want to put on LinkedIn. Be realistic upfront about your bandwidth and focus on the platform that is most relevant to your goals. For most industries, LinkedIn is that platform, unless maybe you're in a more creative field, in which case Instagram is probably your best bet. Twitter is a really great tool, so even if you don't post a lot, use it as a way to discover thought leaders and keep up to date on what's happening in your industry. In terms of how often to post, networking through social media follows the same principle of networking offline. The more you give, the more you get. Now, does that mean you need to become some crazy active content creator influencer? No, but you will need to post. Now that you've created or refreshed your LinkedIn profile, and if you haven't, check out my earlier video, here are my top 10 tips on how to use it. First and foremost, make sure your profile is 100% complete. Members with completed profiles are 40% as likely to receive opportunities than those who don't. Next, I want you to sync your LinkedIn profile with your email addresses. This enables LinkedIn to suggest people you might be able to connect with. It will surface relevant people for you to reach out to, and no connection requests are sent without your permission, so you can vet all the potential connections yourself. Then, join LinkedIn groups. If you went to college, try starting with your alma mater. Then you can try expanding to more of your personal interests and industry. Getting active in groups is a great way to connect with people who share your goals. Try to request one LinkedIn recommendation per month. A LinkedIn recommendation is a short note from a professional who recommends you for a job or project based on their experience with you. So the next time someone says, you did a great job on that project, ask them to write a recommendation on LinkedIn. To make it easy on them, specify what you'd like them to focus on. Generic recommendations that say, Phoebe was great to work with, aren't very helpful, but something more specific like Phoebe's contributions on the project enabled us to increase forecasted savings by 10% over our original plan will really make you come to life and show recruiters what you're capable of. And on that note, return the favor by writing them a recommendation. Next up, get endorsements. An endorsement is different from a recommendation in that an endorsement is a specific skill that a colleague or friend can back you up. According to LinkedIn, people who list at least 5 skills receive up to 17% more profile views. It also might make you appear higher in search results. LinkedIn allows you to add up to 50 skills to your profile. I'd suggest looking at the profiles of your peers and colleagues, plus the job listings you want, and notice which endorsements you're seeing. By the way, you can remove any unwanted items and hide endorsers that you don't want to see. Now that you've optimized your profile for networking, make sure to update your LinkedIn status often, even daily. Tell people what you're doing. Talk about events you're attending, or maybe share ideas or quotes. You can also share something written by someone else, LinkedIn influencers, content from blogs, or online newsletters and updates. Active engagement is key to making your profile seen by others, especially hiring managers and recruiters. Along with updating your status, try commenting on other people's profiles. I'd send them an article that you think that they'd find interesting. Or when you see one of their updates, like a recent promotion or a new job, go ahead and congratulate them. I'm often asked, well, what kind of content should I post on social media? Start by clarifying your goals. This will help shape the kind of things you post, as well as where you want to spend your time engaging. You can also be explicit about your goals, like, I want to connect with people in the trade show industry. That will help the right people come to you. Don't be afraid to show who you are and not just what you do for a living. Let go of trying to be perfect. In fact, the more real your content is, the better. It will humanize you and in turn resonate with more people. That being said, anything that you put online should be viewed through the lens of what your boss or prospective boss might think. So unless you're a party promoter or a fashion influencer, it probably means no photos of you partying on a yacht in a bikini, though you could create a private account just for those kinds of posts. Also, be careful about oversharing, complaining, or anything that might alienate people. Instead, share things you're excited about or passionate about, things that can help or inspire others. In short, things that provide value. Pay attention to what content gets the most engagement and do more of that. The people that you reach out to will most likely Google you, so you want to be in command of what they find. Look at how other people in the industry are using social media to present themselves and put time into building your own profile. I'm a big personal fan of cold outreach because A, you have nothing to lose, and B, it makes you look like a go-getter. However, and this is a big however, there is a very strategic way to go about doing it. But before we get into all that, let's talk about where to find the people that you want to reach out to. LinkedIn is, of course, your best bet to making professional connections because that's what it's used for. So use it. Go through your connections first. Is there anyone that they're connected to that you'd like to be introduced to? Also, look through industry groups and get active. You should also do the same on Facebook. Don't be afraid to post on your channels that you're looking to connect. And a savvy way to do that is by asking your network for the best speakers they've heard of at conferences or podcasts related to your industry. And then, voila, you have a short list of people to reach out to. Also, don't forget to use the hashtags on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok as a tool to search for people doing interesting things. Attend industry conferences if you can, and if you can't, look up the speaker list. I also recommend checking out business podcasts and then reaching out to the guests that you like the most. When it comes to actually doing cold outreach, first put yourself in their shoes. What would make you say yes? Here are some tips to consider before you reach out. You want to make sure that you've defined your ask. And I don't mean that you want to get a job, even if that's ultimately why you're getting in touch. This is about building a relationship first. So, are you looking to them for advice? Just to let them know that you're a fan? Are they the right person you should be reaching out to in the first place? Maybe go for someone more junior or who is a level or two above you, since they're more likely to respond. Ultimately, the best way to do cold outreach is to get a warm introduction first. Okay, now for the actual outreach. Are you excited? Express something that you have in common. Whatever research you did on them, mention it in both the body of the email and the subject line. For example, I saw you speak at insert name conference, or I read this article about you. If you have a mutual acquaintance, put that in the subject line as well. Make it personal. From the research you did about them, mention something that inspired you to reach out. Flattery never hurts, as long as it's genuine. Be compelling. Get them excited about responding to you by telling them briefly about things that you've done in the past that are relevant to your outreach, the origin of your passion for the subject matter, and express a desire to learn from them. Be specific. This is the most important one. Send them no more than 3 things that you want to learn from them, making it very clear about why you specifically reached out to them. This will show that you did your homework. That way, they know how they can help you. It's really important that you show them that you respect their time. Give them 3 options: to meet in person, offer to buy them coffee, hop on a call, or continue by email. When you suggest a call, or Zoom or whatever, suggest 20 minutes so that they don't feel like you're asking too much of them. Of Of course, if the two of you click, you'll probably get more time. If you don't hear back from them within a week, follow up. Then wait another 7 days to follow up again. You can say something like, I'm sure your inbox is really full. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't fall through the cracks, and then reiterate what you originally wrote. This is what I call polite persistence. Don't be discouraged if the person you email doesn't have time to chat with you. Often it's a matter of timing, and just because it doesn't work out today doesn't mean it won't in the future. However, if you keep getting no's, you might want to consider why you're getting a no. So go and ask someone else to read your email and give you feedback. In short, make things personal, but don't take it personally. This is business. When you finally do connect, whether online, on the phone, or in person, send a prompt follow-up note, thanking them and letting them know what resonated with you from their conversation. Keep them periodically posted on your updates, especially if you implemented something that they suggested. They'll feel good knowing that they helped you. Also, if you haven't already, don't be afraid to connect with them on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's a great way to get to know someone and stay peripherally in touch so that by the next time you see each other, you'll have a better sense of who they are and how to connect with them. There are so many events out there, in person or virtual. So what I need you to do first is to be clear about your goals and the kind of people that you want to meet. Here are some questions to ask yourself. Why do you want to expand your network? What information and access are you seeking? What are you passionate about? What do you want to learn? If you walked into an event, what kind of people would you want to be there? Given how busy we all are, it's important to hold yourself accountable. So how are you going to do that? Challenge yourself to attend a certain number of events and people you reach out to. Whatever you do, put it on the calendar, otherwise it ain't happening. Most events have a chat function, so use it. Drop your LinkedIn in there, respond to other people, be upfront about what you're looking for, and reach out privately to someone whose goals seem aligned with yours. Let's talk about networking in person. It does not have to feel like pulling teeth. However, I totally get how nerve-wracking this could be. Putting yourself out there is really vulnerable. What if people don't like me? What if I say something dumb? I'm actually getting really anxious right now saying that. Here's the sort of good news. Social anxiety is the third most common mental health issue in the US. So the next time you get nervous, remember that you're not the only one. Actually, most people are probably just thinking about themselves and not you, if that makes you feel better. Here are a few tips on how to release your nerves and get your game face on. Reach out to the event organizer a few days before the event and ask if there's anything that you can do to support them. My suggestion is offering to check people in, which is really a clever way to getting to meet anybody who comes to the event. 2 other reasons this is super strategic. Volunteering will give you something to do so you don't spend the whole evening in the corner. And getting to know the organizer will help you down the road since they're probably someone with a large network that you may eventually be able to tap into. Okay, now you're at the event. When you first arrive, center yourself and take all of it in. What's the vibe? Where are people congregating? Who looks friendly? Being a good networker means being able to read the room. And the best way to do that is to be present and observant. If you came by yourself, don't be afraid to go up to a group of people and ask if you could join them. Just a simple, hey guys, I'm here alone. Do you mind if I join you? Totally fine. After you get a sense of the conversation, try to find a way to piggyback off of what someone else said, which could be mentioning an article that you just read or posing a question of the group. Remember, if you're going to an event that's specific to a certain industry, cause, or affiliation, there's a reason why everyone is there. You've all come for the explicit purpose of meeting each other. So if you're the first one to initiate a conversation with someone else, they'll probably be so relieved. Having a conversation at a networking event is a little bit like doing a dance. The steps of this dance comes from taking something the other person has told you about themselves and then finding a way to organically connect it to something about you. However, be aware of how much airtime you're taking up. People love to hear themselves talk. Plus, it gives you more information about who they are and how you can connect. All you need to do is come with an open mind and be genuinely curious. Everyone has a story, so ask them about theirs. Have a few stories in your back pocket that showcase something interesting about you or that you're interested in. For example, maybe it was a recent concert you went to or a trip you took. Maybe it's a side hustle that you have that you're hoping to turn into a full-time job. If you're really struggling with what to talk about, focus instead on things that you're passionate about. Sharing something that lights you up will make you memorable and inspiring. If you're not feeling particularly inspired, whether you're out of work or just don't like what you do for work, I understand that it can be a little rough to network. Talk about the challenges that you like to solve or the things that you enjoy. You can also be candid about what you're looking for, since you never know what connections the person you're talking to might have or their willingness to help. What's more important than anything that you could say about yourself is making the other person feel good. And the way to do that is simple. Give them your undivided attention. That means eye contact, asking questions, and then actually listening to the answers. Don't look over their shoulder to scan the room for who else to talk to. That will make them feel like a layover on your way to meet someone more important. And it can actually signal that you're not trustworthy or sincere. Another way to make the other person feel good is to bring positive energy. Think about the kinds of people you're drawn to. They probably have open body language, smile often, and freely gesture, all the things that radiate positive energy. You can be that person. If that means that you need to get yourself hyped up before the event, listening to music or doing jumping jacks, power posing in the bathroom, do it. If you're not feeling particularly confident, square your shoulders and plant your feet. Rooting yourself will make you feel strong, and you'll take up more space, which projects power. There is only one rule to networking, and that is no shit talking. No matter how friendly the other person is, don't use that as an indicator that you can badmouth anyone, whether it's your job, your boss, or coworkers. It is a small world, and you do not want to get caught up in that. If the other person is doing the shit talking, don't pile on. You can either change the subject or simply say, I wasn't aware of that, and then move on. Speaking of moving on, you don't want to get stuck in a corner with one person the whole night. I am totally that person, by the way, since I'm obsessed with hearing about other people's stories. If you get stuck in the corner, you won't meet enough people to make the event valuable. Here's the line I always use. I'm sure that you have other people that you want to meet, and I don't want to monopolize all of your time. Could I have your contact information? I'd love to continue this later. Or the I need to get, insert food, bathroom, whatever line always works. But before you do that, don't forget what you came for. Make sure to get their contact information. In terms of contact information, here's a little bit of controversial advice for you. Don't bring business cards. Yes, you heard that right. No business cards. When I used to bring mine, I noticed that whenever I met people, they'd ask for my card and move on before I could get theirs. And then they never followed up, which meant all that networking went to waste. So now, when people ask for my card, I tell them that I don't actually have one. And would they mind putting their information directly into my phone? I send them an email on the spot, and then they have my information. Done, done, and done. When you finally do connect, whether online, on the phone, or in person, send a prompt follow-up note, thanking them and letting them know what resonated with you from the conversation. Keep them periodically posted with your updates, especially if you implemented something they suggested. They'll feel good to know that they helped you. Also, if you haven't already, don't be afraid to connect with them on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's a great way to get to know someone and stay peripherally in touch so that by the next time you see each other, you'll have a better sense of who they are and how to connect with them. Take the pressure off yourself. You don't have to try to meet as many people as possible. In fact, if you do that, you'll end up with a bunch of business cards, but probably not a whole lot of meaningful connections. So instead, aim to have at least 2 to 3 of those more in-depth conversations. Quality is better than quantity. I want to end with 2 things. 1, networking should never feel transactional. Being strategic and being genuine is not mutually exclusive. In fact, if you feel like you need to become someone else to network, you are not networking with the right people. And number 2, networking is about asking for help while paying it forward. It's also about shooting your shot, even when you're pretty sure you won't get a yes. At the end of the day, what do you have to lose? The number one way I've expanded my network is by being a connector. When I meet new people and I learn about what they do or what they're looking to do, I start thinking about my network and someone or some people that I should introduce them to. However, never connect people for the sake of connecting. The connection has to be truly beneficial for everyone. And the only way to know what someone is looking for in a connection is to ask them. Connections need to be meaningful, and it's an important responsibility to connect people in a way that is respectful of everyone's time, energy, and interests. Before I get into how to connect people, and yes, there are some do's and don'ts, I want you to get as organized as possible so that you even know who you can be connecting in the first place. Take time going through your LinkedIn. You can actually export your LinkedIn contacts, by the way. Who is in your inbox, your phone, and wherever else you're keeping track of people you know. To keep everything organized in one place, I use a template entitled Personal CRM, which stands for Customer Relationship Management, from an awesome platform called Airtable. Now, there's some etiquette to follow when you connect people, so listen up. Number one, ask the permission of each person you want to connect with before you connect them. This is also called the double opt-in. Number two, if you are the person who is being connected, be gracious. Do two things: thank them and follow up after you've made the connection. If you don't, it not only makes you look bad, it also reflects poorly on the person who connected you. Whatever happens next, keep the original person updated so that they know that you followed through and what ended up happening. Remember, connections can be made anywhere, anytime, and with anyone. Never underestimate what you and those you're connected to can do for each other. If not today, then in the future. What's great about being a connector is that it sort of shows people what you'd like them to do for you. Being a connector also builds a lot of goodwill. If we all keep paying it forward, everyone benefits. Just imagine how many people each person in your network knows. If everyone were connected to one another, it would create an incredibly strong web. It would create community. Speaking of community, being a connector was how I started Ladies Get Paid. I invited 6 women whom I admired to think of at least 3 women that they thought would enjoy the event that I was putting on. I asked if they'd be open to either connecting me or forwarding the invitation to them. Every one of them made the introduction, and when I was connected, I asked those women if they could suggest at least 3 other women to invite to the event. I continued that until I reached 100 women. The event was really special in large part because everyone there had someone in common, which made it instantly feel intimate and welcoming. Now we have over 100,000 women from all 50 states and more than 120 countries, so I'd say connecting worked pretty well. You've got to seize every opportunity you have and create them when you don't. You may not get a yes every time, but that's okay. One yes can change your life. I promise you, the doors will open. Now, all you have to do is walk through them. The interview. This might be the most nerve-wracking part of applying for a job, except for maybe negotiating your salary. Unlike your cover letter, where you have time to write, revise, and revise again, now you're going to be put on the spot. But don't worry, there are a certain set of questions that most interviewers ask, and so if you practice, you will be just fine. In this video, I'll address some of the most commonly asked interview questions you can expect from a hiring manager and offer up suggestions on different ways to respond. The best piece of advice I have is to understand why they're asking the question in the first place. So with every question, consider what is it that they're trying to understand about you. For example, when they ask about your weaknesses, it's not actually about your weaknesses. It's about seeing how self-aware you are and how you work through challenges. Ultimately, a hiring manager uses the interview to better understand who you are as a person and how you'll fit into the team dynamic and the overall company culture. This is your opportunity to tell your story and really bring to life how you have the background, skills, strengths, and ideas to do the job and to do it well. If you are gearing up for an interview now, I'd suggest having the job description in front of you and practicing along. Now, let's get started. How to answer commonly asked interview questions. What's the best way to answer the question, "Tell us about yourself"? This question can make a lot of us panic. It feels kind of abstract, and it can be hard to narrow down our life story. However, this question's not really about your life story. What they're really asking you is, are you the right person for this job? A great framework to use is present, past, future. Let's break that down. The present. This is about where you currently work and any key qualifications and strengths you have that match the job description. The past. This is the meat of your answer. It's about your education, your experiences, and one or two achievements, being as specific as possible and quantifying as best as you can. Include things you've learned and skills you've gained and how that's brought positive results to the work that you've done. The future. Talk about your goals and motivations and why you're excited about this particular opportunity, including any ideas you have for the job. You might also want to reference the company's mission and demonstrate how you exemplify their values. But it's not just about what you've done. It's also about who you are. What motivates you? What are you curious about? Have there been certain mentors or old bosses or even coworkers who have had an impact on you? What have you learned about yourself along the way? And how have all of these things contributed to the decisions you've made in your life and in your career? This is a way of connecting the dots in your career trajectory. Explain the various roles you've had, what led you to them, and your general thought process from job to job. Now, this shows your ambition and how you're growing, and how this potential new job fits into all of that. Now, I know this sounds like a lot, so do your best to keep your answers as succinct as possible. A good way to practice this is by writing down everything and then getting feedback from someone on what you can cut out. Depending on where you live, asking what you make might actually be illegal. This is called the salary history ban. And the rationale is that if marginalized groups are getting paid less than everyone else at the beginning of their career, and if every salary after that is always based on the first salary, the gap compounds and they'll never catch up. However, if you are asked, you can keep things abstract, like I make in the mid 5 figures, or you can decline to answer. Or you can tell them the truth, but then pivot to why that number is not relevant to what you'll be asking for now, since A, you might have been paid below market, and B, you've gained new skills, and C, this is an entirely new job you're applying for. This question can trip up a lot of people, but the answer is actually quite straightforward. State the market research you did and the range that you found. And then you can follow it up with, I know you pay fairly and that you're a company that values gender pay parity. No doubt we'll find something that works for all of us. Would you be willing to share more information about the role and what compensation might look like? Now, that being said, hopefully the salary range that was listed in the job description, so you already know that you're not wasting your time or theirs on a job that is below your bottom line. By asking this question, the hiring manager wants to know if you did your homework about the company and what the role requires. They also want to see how you view your career path and your goals moving forward. So start by highlighting your strengths and how those have prepared you for this position. Then talk about how you want to grow and how you're ready to hit the ground running. If you can mention something about the company that demonstrates how your goals are aligned, that is definitely a bonus. It's totally fine if you don't have a specific answer. In fact, for this question, it's actually probably best not to have one. So what they're trying to understand is whether or not this job will be a stopgap on the road to something else. In your answer, focus on skills that you want to grow and the experiences that you want to have. What they want to know here is if you are a quick learner and a problem solver. Ultimately, it's not about the conflict. It's about how you dealt with it. I suggest using the STAR method as a framework for telling the story of what happened. STAR is an acronym for situation, task, action, and result. Let's break it down further. Situation. Briefly explain the issue you were dealing with in a positive, constructive way. Task. Describe your role in the situation. Action. Discuss what you did to resolve or address the situation. Result. Emphasize what you learned and how your actions had a positive outcome. However you decide to answer, keep things positive. This is not a time to complain or talk shit about other people. This is not about repeating your resume. They've already seen it. It's why you got the interview in the first place. What you're going to do with this question is add some color by highlighting your strengths and any unique experiences and qualifications. Start with what you've learned about the company and the role, and then use the following to illustrate why you're a great fit. Your strengths, your skills, experiences, passion. Something to remember is that this is about what you can bring to the company and not what the company can do for you. This question isn't actually about your weakness. It's about your ability to be self-aware and what you've done to overcome your deficits, and maybe even what you learned and how it made you better at your job. In fact, this could actually be the jumping off point for a really compelling story about what you're capable of, how you think, and how you work. A good structure for answering this question is to identify the weakness, the action you took to overcome it, and the result that you've seen. For example, weakness. When I make a mistake, I get hung up over it and I will dwell for a few hours. Action. When I realized that this was interfering with my work, I now give myself 15 minutes to dwell on it before moving forward. Result. Now, instead of sulking for most of the day, I remain productive even when I'm upset. Now, here's a question from the Ladies Get Paid community. Should I bring up a side hustle during the interview as a way of exhibiting skills, knowledge, and work ethic, or is it best to only focus on my corporate roles? I don't want to raise any red flags that I wouldn't be 100% committed to the role I'm interviewing for, and it definitely wouldn't be the case. You're not wrong in worrying that bringing up a side hustle might make you look distracted, or as if this job is a stopgap to ultimately turning your side hustle into a full-time hustle. However, here's the thing that I like about side hustles. It shows that you're a self-starter, that you can motivate yourself, you can think like an entrepreneur, and you're gonna bring all of those skills into the workplace. I would stress, though, that this isn't going to distract you from your job, and even better yet, that you have collaborators who are now the ones in charge. Unless that's a lie, then maybe don't say it. By being explicit about how you understand that your first priority needs to be and always will be the business, that will definitely make them feel better. By the way, if your side hustle doesn't relate in any way to this job you're applying for, I wouldn't bring it up at all. Another question from the Ladies Get Paid community. If they ask, why do you want to leave your job? And the answer is because your current boss is toxic, should I answer honestly? First of all, I am so sorry to hear that. Toxic bosses are the absolute worst, but should you tell them that? Absolutely not. So let's make your answer super positive and all about this new job and not the old one. Here are a few examples of things that you could say. I want a job with more responsibility and I'm ready for that challenge. I wasn't considering a move, but when I saw this job description and read more about your company, it's clear that your mission and culture is aligned with my values. And then you can go into more specifics. Another commonly asked question is about management qualification. If you have never been in an official management position, but you're applying for those jobs, what would convince them that you're qualified? Your goal here is to do 3 things. 1, you know what it takes to succeed in this role. 2, you have great people skills. And 3, you're a fast learner. Basically, you want to show them that you're hungry and that you can hit the ground running. The best way to know what it takes to succeed is by talking with people who have had or currently have this role or something similar. Ask them about their day-to-day challenges, things that they wish they'd known when they started, and any advice in general. Being a good manager means having good people skills. So can you give them examples of your ability to communicate, to mentor, to lead? You can also bring up management books that you've read and some things that you've learned from them. Speaking of learning, and given that this role will be a jump for you, you want to reassure them that you're a fast learner. Give them examples of times in the past that you triumphed against a steep learning curve. Speak to the challenges that you might face in this role and examples of how you'll overcome them. Now, if there are classes that you need to take, or maybe you're subscribing to publications that talk about the industry, weave those elements into your explanation. This is where you can emphasize your strong people skills and your ability to be a quick learner. What if I was unemployed and have a gap in my resume? If the gap was because you stayed home to be a mom or a caretaker, you can absolutely talk about what you learned about yourself, the skills that you developed. Also, if you're not finding the role that you want, is there any way for you to create the role that you want? This could mean starting a side hustle. It could also mean supporting somebody else's side hustle. And this is going to help keep you motivated. It's going to help give you something to talk about. Just be upfront about it and then pivot to why you want to work here and what your goals are for the future. I've had a couple of experiences where the HR person has said, I'm overqualified for a position, but I really need the job. How should I respond? Okay, let's work backwards from why they might be saying this. Are they worried that by being overqualified that you'll get bored and might not stay long at the company? If that's the case, speak to your commitment to the company and to offer examples of times in your past where you've demonstrated loyalty. Talk about how you enjoy mentoring others and that hiring you can guarantee a minimal learning curve. If that doesn't suffice, you can also just be straightforward and ask them what their specific concerns are as it relates to being overqualified. At the end of most interviews, the hiring manager will ask you if you have any questions. What should you say? You definitely don't want to be caught off guard here, so have some questions ready in your back pocket. This is where you can make it more of a conversation between two peers and just be a bit more relaxed. Here are a few suggestions. Why did you join the company? What's your favorite part about working here? How would you describe the company culture? Are work styles collaborative or more individually focused? Are there opportunities for professional development? What challenges are the business currently facing? What are near-term, mid-term, long-term goals of the company? Where do you see the industry going? What challenges does someone in this role face? And what kinds of traits do the people who've been in this role before me have had? What has made them successful? Where have people who have held this role typically ended up next after this company? By the way, this answer that they give you, that can help you figure out if this is a place where you actually want to work. Do you have any hesitations about my background or skills in relation to this position? Is there anything I can clarify for you? What is a good way to follow up with someone after an interview? And how soon after the interview should you send a follow-up? A great way to follow up with them is to thank them for their time and mention something personal that you liked about them in the interview. You should send your follow-up immediately, but make sure that this is not some canned email. So, if you Googled them, which you should have before, you can try mentioning something about their background, like, P.S., I loved that you were successfully able to pivot between these roles, etc. Is there an appropriate way to suggest working remotely or in another office outside of the main location for the job posting? Well, the good news is that companies have gotten very used to remote working. So unless not working from home is a deal breaker, I suggest asking them some questions first to get a sense of how they're approaching things. Questions like, how do you envision remote work moving forward? Is it going to be a hybrid model of partially remote, partially in office? How has being remote during COVID worked or not worked for this team and for the company? I will say that this is a tough question to ask in an interview because when you apply for a job, your primary goal, the main goal, is just to get a callback, to get that second interview. Your goal is to get to the final interview, and then of course the overall goal is to get the job. But you don't want to necessarily say things in early interviews that might be counted against you. Now, that being said, is working remotely, if you don't do it, is that a deal breaker? And if it is, and you've gone so far into the interview process and have never brought it up, and then the answer ends up being no, well, guess whose time you wasted? You wasted your own time and also their time. So maybe just ask them how Are you looking at remote work, and is it a deal breaker if somebody were to work remotely? And then from there, you can figure out if this is something that you want to speak up about, or if this is even a job that works for you and if you want to pursue it further. Here is a commonly asked question during COVID: background or no background for Zoom interviews? The interview is the time to express who you are and to really showcase your personality. Obviously, that's very hard to do when being interviewed virtually. So brainstorm all of the ways that you can show your personality and your energy. So notice my hands when I speak. I'm gesticulating as best as I can to convey my energy. I've art directed the shit out of my background. I've got all the light rings over here. Seriously, I've really figured out my lighting, figured out my makeup for the lighting. And by the way, when people say, "Oh my God, you look good," this is lighting, okay? Also, one of my favorite tips is wear a blazer or something that makes you feel really comfortable and confident. I would take a look at the company's website or Instagram and really see how their employees are dressed and sort of go off of that to how they present themselves. So, all of that said, if having a unique Zoom background helps you express your personality, do it. Just do it tastefully so it's not a distraction. Another tip that I would really recommend, and this may take some practice, is that when you are talking to them, don't look at them on the screen. Look directly into the camera lens on your laptop. So see, I'm doing it right now. And it's awkward, but I'm doing it, okay? Doing this is giving the viewer the impression that you're making direct eye contact with them. Now, when they're speaking to you, absolutely feel free to look at them on the screen. This is about you being relaxed and feeling comfortable. So at the end of the day, just do what's right for you. My best piece of advice is to take a beat. Breathe. There is no need for you to respond quickly to any of their questions. We always think silence is longer than it actually is. But I get it. When I take a second to think, it feels like 5 minutes. But I promise you it's not. It's really just a second. So what they're seeing here is, how do you handle the situation? If you don't know an answer and you're getting really flustered and you speak quickly and you make up something on the spot, that's not showing them how you'll be able to handle stressful situations. So again, take a beat and breathe. Breathing is always the first way to go, and don't just do it right before the interview. I want you to really get into the habit in the weeks leading up of how to calm yourself with your breath. My favorite breathing exercise is called 4-7-8. By the way, if you have your own breathing exercises to recommend, go for it, share it. Okay, so breathing 4-7-8. First, you have to breathe out everything. Get all of the oxygen and the air that's inside of you. Then you breathe in for 4, you hold it for 7, and you breathe out for 8. Do this 3 times and do it while you're sitting down, because I don't want you to pass out. I promise you will instantly feel calmer and more relaxed. Now, if you don't know how to answer a question, maybe you can answer their question with the question. You can even just ask them to directly clarify their question. And if that doesn't work, you can always buy time by asking if you can just get back to them with an answer. For example, I want to put more thought into this. I want to make sure I'm answering in the most thoughtful way that I can. Can I get back to you? Can I send you an email afterwards? And then you follow up. There's absolutely no shame in that. Also, by the way, this is a relationship that has to work for you too. You are interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. And I know that isn't necessarily how you might be feeling right now, but this is a two-way relationship. And remember, the fact that you even got this interview means that they want this to work. They are rooting for you. This is not a test. They are coming to you and they're saying, "We hope that you're the one." How do I know if this company is a good fit for me? Research, research, research. Of course, you'll want to Google the company before your interview. But honestly, the best way to find out what it's really like working there is to talk to current and former employees. So always take what the former employee says with a grain of salt. We don't know how that relationship ended. Based on the company culture, it's probably a good idea to find out what working with your manager or prospective manager is like. So ask about their style and what kinds of things and people they tend to reward. Another thing to watch out for is turnover. If people leave the company pretty quickly, that's definitely a red flag. On the other hand, if people are working there for a long time, that's great. That means there's a solid company culture. It's also worthwhile to ask how long it generally takes for people to get promoted. You want to know if this is a place that's going to stymie your growth. Or are you going to get stuck in a certain area? Not only how quickly it takes for these people to get promoted, but also what kind of a person gets promoted. And that's something that you can ask about. If the company's makeup of leadership is like all white men, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a place that you won't want to work at, but it does mean that you're going to want to ask specific questions like, how does someone get promoted here? What does career development look like? What percentage of skills listed on the job description should we make sure we have before we apply? Does it vary by company? This is a great question. So there's been a ton of research that shows women feel the need to meet 100% of the criteria of a job description in order to apply for it. While men, on the other hand, usually apply after meeting about 60% of the requirements. Men are just like, what do I have to lose? And they're right. So what happens when you don't apply for something? You don't get it, and that's 100% guaranteed. So the answer, you should always, always, always apply. Now, of course, if you don't match any of the requirements, you are wasting your own time. But for the requirements that you don't have some reasoning prepared as to why and how you're still a good fit for the company. Maybe you're currently learning this skill, like you're taking classes, or maybe this is the time where you can show how you're a fast learner. Either way, go for it. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Guess what? You're done. You made it to the end of this course. I hope that you're feeling super proud of yourself. This work is really hard, and on average, it can take 5 to 6 months to find a job. And if the economy is rocky, maybe even longer. That's why it is so important that you always be putting money into a savings account, since the ability to walk away from a job or really anything oftentimes comes down to if you can afford to do it. I want you to take your time with this stuff though. I want you to stick to your gut. Deep down, I think you know what's right for you. And the way that you present yourself, whether it's through your resume or your cover letter, LinkedIn, how you network and how you interview, everybody should know how awesome that you truly are. You deserve the absolute best, and anywhere you work, they should feel lucky to have you. Now, go get that job.